Okay, so I might spoil the video a bit, but BM kinda sucks in 11.1. It's getting a full rework on Pack Leader, which gives you a big Rexar vibe and of course a new tier set to farm, and still, it might be a spec you really enjoy, and my personal opinions don't matter since you might actually like this Beast Mastery version. So what's changing? First off, Pack Leader has a full rework in what it does, and since most of it is just passive damage increases that will not impact any talent you pick or abilities you press, I will mention the ones that do. To quickly explain it, Howl of the Pack Leader will make kill command summon ever so often a wyvern, a boar, and a bear in this order. The rate at which you spawn these gets accelerated a bit, but again, nothing that you will play around. Each beast does some macro cool stuff though. The wyvern will buff you and your pets, and you can empower this buff with Fury of the Wyvern to increase the strength of the damage boost and the duration of it. You will do that passively, so not really that impactful rotation wise. The boar comes in and rams through your enemies, dealing quite a bit of damage, and with Hog Strider increases the damage of Cobra Shot and adds an additional target to its hit, stacking to 4 total for a total of 100% more damage and a 4 target cleave. This seems to also factor in the kill command cooldown reduction, which during my playtesting ended up capping my kill command charges. You have to know to track this, however, meaning using weak auras, otherwise you will 100% waste kill command charges, making this talent a bit of a waste. It doesn't help that kill command will get another talent that reduces its cooldown. For that, we need to mention the bear that comes in, slashes everyone, and leaves a very strong bleed up. Once you take Ursine Fury, that dot will have a 10% chance per tick to reduce the cooldown of kill command by 1 second. And in AoE, with multiple ticks going off at the same time, you will be swimming in kill command procs. This on its own sounds great. Who doesn't want more buttons to press? But kill command isn't your only button. You still need to maintain frenzy and beast cleave in AoE while putting your explosive shot and dire beasts on cooldown and responding to some kill shot procs. It adds up eventually. Alternatively, you can go with the choice node in Venom Fangs that makes the bear consume the serpent sting on your enemies for its remaining damage. This will imply you will be using explosive venoms as a talent choice, which so far has had a hard time finding its way into modern builds. More on that later. You will be getting a defensive talent as well in Shell Cover. This was previously a 2-minute cooldown effect that once you dip below 40% HP, you proc a 10% damage reduction buff for 6 seconds. In the latest build, it has been buffed to proc when you are below 60% HP with a 90 seconds cooldown. With the way modern combat design is, chances of you dropping below 60% are quite often, making this talent unreliable and likely always on cooldown, on top of the 10% damage reduction being fairly minimal. Because of how it works, you'll most likely not even think about it and just set it and forget it, as with most Pack Leader talents, with one more exception. And that is the utility choice node of Slicked Shoes and Horsehair Tether. Slick Shoes makes disengage remove impairing effects, which can be good especially in dungeons like Floodgate, where you can get rooted and have fire patches under you at the same time. An interesting one is the alternative choice, where Binding Shot will snap targets back to its center when the stun triggers, similar to other effects like Sigil of Chains and Gorfine's Grasp. This is a very niche utility that can prove useful in Mythic Plus dungeons. A few talents have also changed for the actual spec. Animal Companion is now a choice node with Solitary Companion, a talent that makes your current pet bigger and give it 35% more damage instead of just summoning an additional one. This feels like a cosmetic change, which is always cool, assuming that the tuning is close between it and its counterpart. Serpent Sting has gone away as a talent, and in its place you now have Poison Barbs, making your casts of Barb Shot have a 30% chance to proc an AoE burst of nature damage and apply Serpent Sting. The damage is fairly low from the proc, however. The 30% chance for Serpent Sting to be applied in AoE by Barb Shot might make Serpent Sting more viable on paper than Explosive Venoms, which is gone now. The lack of agency of maintaining it just transforms this into yet another Beast Mastery passive gameplay with no further interactions with the spec. I'm not sure if this is its final form, since we lost the key damage over time synergy talent, and that was Basilisk's Collar. This talent was problematic from beta since it was just way too good, and tuning it didn't seem to be a solution for some reason. So Dire Frenzy was moved in its place and made a 2-pointer, and its power has been split in those 2 points, and now you just have to spend double the amount to get the same value as you do now. In its place, however, you now have Dire Cleave, which makes your Dire Beasts have Beast Cleave for 8 seconds at 100% effectiveness. Since Dire Beasts normally last for 8 seconds anyway, it's just essentially an AoE on your beasts. Unless you, of course, talent into Dire Frenzy and get the 2 extra seconds extension and 60% more damage on them. It will change your AoE builds a bit, since right now you don't really have a lot of points to spare for it unless you just give up stuff like, I don't know, Master Handler and another point from somewhere. We will see, since Dire Cleave really feels like it should be paired with Dire Frenzy for optimal synergy. Flame from the future here with no face. We got a new talent in the recent PTR update with Thundering Hooves that replaces Explosive Venoms, and this makes Explosive Shot cause pets to stomp at 200% effectiveness. The thought behind this is great. However, this maybe points out an issue with BM talent where you just don't have the points to spare for this, most likely, unless the tuning just gives it a few damage. Considering you have no Explosive Shot synergy with your kit the way MM and Survival have, I'm not sure about the viability of this mechanic. Also, they changed Withering Fire to proc on Call of the Wild casts and last for its duration. During its effect, you no longer fire black arrows automatically, but instead gain Death Blow every 4 seconds, and consuming it will fire the additional 2 smaller black arrows at 2 other targets. Neat, but also means Call of the Wild will be a lock-in, which, to be fair, kind of was already. Lastly, the tier set is not too bad actually, as opposed to some other examples out there, so rejoice in the fact, at least. But it still is very much super passive. Your 2 set gives you random procs of barb shots, while Bestial Wrath fires 1 automatically. These are shot from your character. They don't actually consume your active charges, and they don't give you a charge to use. You will just sometimes fire 1 out, get the benefits from it, and call it a day. The 4 set makes it so when the 2 set procs, your pet goes apeshit for 10 seconds and starts doing some AoE nature damage. Its attacks will reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath as well. The effects are nice. They might push you into more barb shot talents if the procs are often enough, but won't change your gameplay at all. It will just be easier to keep Frenzy up, and you will have a few more Bestial Wrath casts. Nothing essentially that you haven't received before. The reason I think BM sucks is because it just feels boring and unchanged. For a new patch with a full rework on a hero talent and a whole new tier set, to have the exact playstyle with no actual gameplay changes feels like you are just driving a Ferrari that has had its paint changed. Yeah, you drive a different colored Ferrari, but it's the same car, with the same engine, except it's not a Ferrari, it's just Beast Mastery. On top of this, there is the lack of visual updates. Let's start with Pack Leader, because I wanted to address this in the survival video we made, but thought it would be more appropriate here. Dude, the visuals need an upgrade. With the new Pack Leader, you are supposed to feel like Rexar, since you end up summoning beasts that do some pretty cool shit during combat. You get Wyvern, a Boar, and a Bear, basically Leok, Huffer, and Misha, that spawn and wail on enemies, but you can barely tell they are there. Since we already have Warlocks with Diabolus that has some pretty obvious visuals, I was expecting at least something of this caliber. Shaman has been getting animation changes almost every patch, while Beast Mastery isn't even getting similar treatment with already existing tech. Not gonna lie, playing Pack Leader on beta was a bit disappointing, since I couldn't really tell I had a new set of hero talents and a new tier set period. And I'm not talking about the bugs the spec still has. BM is the second most played spec in the game, and one where people are actually attached to its fantasy on an emotional level, so much so that they went in an uproar when marksmanship lost its pet they were not even using. I keep making this example, which is a simple one that risks affecting the technical side of the spec, but can elevate its fantasy and visuals. Earlier, a few patches ago, when Call of the Wild was first introduced in Dragonflight, the way it spawned the beast was right next to you, after which they immediately rushed at your target. This gave me old Stampede vibes, and most importantly, I could see every time Dire Beast would spawn, which told me, hey, yeah, that's mine, and I called that beast. When they spawn at the target, whether it's just regular dire beasts or pack leader beasts, you don't actually get to see it. The melee space is filled with tank and melee DPS animations, plus any range DPS spells that hit around there. You would be hard-pressed to see your own pets actually messing stuff up. Everything BM does is so passive that you can just as easily replace pets with dots and nothing would change. Having a visual impact, even for a passive effect, can elevate the gameplay and give you an actual feel of being the master of the beasts. Flame from the future here again. We have visual updates, ladies and gents. And unfortunately not around any of the points I was making, which why they're still in the video, but more on the shot sides of things. Barb shot and counter shot have had their visuals improved, and barb shots and trank shots missile speed increased, which granted makes it a bit harder to see. The visuals for implosive and explosive traps have been updated, if ever so slightly, with another visual update to disengage and pose haste that either it isn't applied on the PTR or very hard to notice, similar to aspect of the cheetah as well. It's good to polish the animations though, possibly to remove visual clutter, yet still I would have hoped to have new pet animations. Maybe next patch. Maybe the expectations were too much. Maybe I was spoiled with Mage and Shaman. Either way, the upsides is that BM in 11.1 actually does what it does now, slightly better, faster, slightly more convenient. So it is in fact an upgrade, and if you don't care about the passiveness of it, the lack of visual impacts of it, you will enjoy BM more next patch than in this one. And if you haven't caught the marksmanship changes which recently got their pet back, you can check our video on it and see what an actual good talent design can mean for Hunter. We talked about the new mechanics, synergies, and general gameplay, and to be fair, as a BM and survival fanboy, MM has totally converted me at this point.